digital recording. In this section I'm going to briefly explain the following principles: colour temperature, white balance, gain, shutter speed, exposure, focus, basic shot types, and lighting. Colour temperature is the measure of a light source in degrees of kelvins, or K for short, and is typically divided into two types: cool colours or blues of over 5000 degrees Kelvin, and warm colours or yellows and reds, which are temperatures of about 2700 to 3000. Even though this range of temperatures could occur naturally, in video production they are typically blue for sunlight and yellow for tungsten light, even though most of lights now are daylight balanced. The wrong colour temperature can make your images look unnatural, and this can be controlled when filming by adjusting the white balance on the camera. On most cameras, there is the option of automatic or manual white balance. To set the white balance on your camera, make sure it's on manual mode and point the camera towards where you'll be filming. Take a piece of clean white card and hold it up so that it is reflecting the light source or sources for the scene. Zoom the camera in until it fills up the frame, then push the white balance button. You can now film your scene. For reference, here's an incorrectly white balanced shot filmed outside, and an incorrectly white balanced shot filmed inside. Exposure and gain. A lot of people use automatic exposure when filming, and this is okay in some cases. The exposure will fix itself. This makes for an unprofessional looking shot. Exposure can be set manually on the camera by adjusting the f-stops on the lens. Depending on the camera, this may be on the lens itself, on the body of the camera, or in a menu somewhere where you'll never ever find it. To do it on this camera, simply press the function key and then the manual exposure tool. The exposure is the top button on the left hand side of the menu. By adjusting the slider, you're increasing or decreasing the amount of light falling on the camera's sensor by opening or closing the camera's iris. Shutter speed. To change the shutter speed, simply press the middle left button, which should display 150. By increasing the shutter speed, the camera opens and closes at a greater rate, resulting in a smoother but darker image. By decreasing the shutter speed, the video becomes blurred and bright. If you record a very fast shutter speed, your individual frames will be clear and you won't have any motion blur, but if you shoot at a lower shutter speed, your individual frames will have motion blur as the image on the screen is moving while the shutter is open. As a rule, work out your frame rate, that's frames per second, and double the shutter speed to get a natural motion blur. To combat the light issue, you could use the camera's gain control shown at the bottom of the menu. This is a way of increasing your camera's sensitivity to light, a bit like ISO on a DSLR, but often results in horrible grainy images if used too aggressively. Focus. Getting your shot in focus is as important as making your films look professional, and you should never use autofocus when making a narrative film, unless it's for a certain effect. When talking about focus, we need to understand depth of field, which basically relates to how much of the shot is in focus. A deep depth of field is a shot where everything is in focus from the foreground to the background, whilst a shallow depth of field only has a small proportion of the shot in focus. Focusing with a video camera is simple. You zoom into the subject you wish to film and turn the focus ring until the image is sharp. Then you resize your shot accordingly. Video cameras work differently from a DSLR, where you can control depth of field using mainly the aperture settings. To control depth of field on a video camera, you need to change your physical position and the focal length of the lens. To get a deep depth of field, just keep the lens zoomed all the way out, and to get a shallow depth of field, position the camera far away from your subject and zoom right in. Basic shot types. Here are some examples of shot types. Lighting. Here I'm going to show you the basic principles of three-point lighting. Three-point lighting consists of three light sources. There's the key light, which is your main strongest light, the fill light, which should be less powerful than the key. This is used to fill the shadows created by the key light slightly. And lastly, the backlight, set up behind and above the subject. This is used to add a highlight to the back of the subject and help separate them from the background. Here they are being applied to the subject. Digital editing. Whilst I've been editing this video together, I've done a few things along the way, and the first one is file management. This basically means organise your footage and can be done by firstly labelling your footage in a logical way, and by creating folders and subfolders to make your footage and resources easy to find. Sound and picture synchronization. For this project, I've used two cameras recording simultaneously, the one at the front and the one at the side. To synchronize both angles, I used the clapperboard at the start of the recording and used the audio waveforms to match the two together. I've also used a few transitions, such as a cross dissolve, throughout the edit. Transitions can be a good way of smoothing out your shots or hiding continuity errors, but can also be used for a stylistic effect for showing the passing of time. But don't overuse them. Exporting. There are many different formats in which you can export your video, and many different resolutions, frame rates, bit rates, and so on. But here's how I'm going to export this particular video. First, in Premiere Pro, I'm going to go to a file, then export, then click on media, which brings up the export settings window. There are lots of things you could change in here, but I'm going to click on the format QuickTime drop-down and choose H.264. I'm going to leave the preset on match source, high bit rate. I'm going to change the output name by clicking on the blue text and renaming it, changing the save location, and then hitting export at the bottom. Then sit back and wait for your render to finish. Finally, here's a film we made using some of our techniques discussed previously. Thanks for watching.